Okay, howdy everybody. This is Take.
Hi, I'm Richard,
We are broadcasting from Okayama, Japan to the world.
and you're watching Take's Bluegrass Hero Interviews.
In this series, we explore the lives and contributions of the remarkable individuals who have shaped bluegrass music and who I consider my heroes.
And our guest today is the guitarist and singer-songwriter, Wes Golding. Welcome, Wes.
Wes
Thank
was
you.
the guitarist and lead vocalist of the legendary Boone Creek. That's when he became my hero. Wes, we are so happy to have you with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm thankful that all you do for bluegrass music and getting their music out for all the folks to listen to.
Thank you. My pleasure. Wes, your career path is rather unique, as you've been a part of not one, but two of my all-time favorite bluegrass bands, the Shenandoah and Boone Creek. We'll circle back to both bands a little later, but for now, I love to begin with your musical roots. All right?
Sure, yeah, sounds good.
All
I
right.
I began playing at a very young age, around 6 years old, I imagine, 6 or 7 years old. And I learned a lot of that from my family back in those days. Back years ago, that's instead of like kids do nowadays, going out and being on the internet or this and that. Back in those days, all we did, we went around to friends' houses, neighbors, and my dad was a musician. He liked to play music, and I was brought up at a real early age, being around different types of music. And matter of fact, my grandparents played music. My grandfather played the fiddle on my dad's side of the family, and his mother played banjo, clawhammer style banjo. So I can remember when I was growing up, 4, 5, 6 years old, watching my grandmother play clawhammer banjo.
Mhm.
And when I got a little older and learned a couple of chords on the guitar, I would actually sit there and play old clawhammer banjo tunes with her, old fiddle tunes we'd play. And actually, my grandfather had joined in with us a couple of times on the fiddle, so that was a memory that I'll always have. And from that early age, my father taking me around, it's just something that I wanted to grow up and learn to do, and learn to play it. I learned to love it at a young age.
So it's three generations involved.
Yes, there was.
Amazing.
I feel like it's very unique. I tell my grandchildren now, I got two granddaughters, about the fact that I sat there with my grandmother, and played guitar with her. And it's mind-boggling, to think at the age of 4 or 5 years old,
Mhm.
and she was really, really, really good at it. And where I grew up in the foothills of Virginia and North Carolina, music, that type of music was real prevalent in that area. A lot of people were really involved in that type of music.
Thank you. Thank you. At the age of just 8, you formed a band called the Playmates. That's incredible. Who are the other members and how did this group come together at such a young age?
Well, we grew up close to Galax, Virginia, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it, they have a real big fiddlers convention in Galax, Virginia. And there was about 3 or 4 young kids that would come every year to the fiddlers convention and play music. One of them's name was Jimmy Edmonds. He was a fiddle player. I think at that time he was probably about 7 years old.
Mhm.
I was around 8 at that time playing guitar. And my best friend at that time was Jimmy Arnold. He was playing banjo.
Mhm.
And we had Jimmy's cousin named Tommy who played mandolin. So Jimmy, I was 7. Jimmy Evans was probably about 6. Jimmy Arnold was probably about 8, and his cousin Tommy was probably about 7. So we were all very young, and it was, you know, you see a few young kids nowadays playing music like that, but it was really rare back in those days to see kids that young. And we just got together to get together at the Fiddlers Convention and just started picking, and one thing led to another. Our fathers or our parents would take us to different places to play, and people were kind of amazed, I guess, because of our age, you know.
Okay, Wes, you and Jimmy Arnold shared a very special bond, musical, personal, almost like brothers. Could you take us back to how that relationship began?
Well, as I was saying a minute ago, we started with the little band we had. And from that, we were both only child. Jimmy was the only son, and I was the only son. So the music kind of brought us together like brothers. We spent every weekend together. I'd go to his house, he'd come to my house, and we would, pick and dream of playing music. You know, at that time, we had heroes too, like Bill Monroe and the Stanley Brothers, people like that were our heroes. So we were just kids that grew very close, just like brothers, and we spent all of our childhood together, growing up, listening and picking music. And finally, later on, when we got to be teenagers and got into school and graduated, Jimmy had the honor to go on and play music first because he was a couple of years older than me. And that kind of separated us at that time when we got a little older, and he went his way and I went mine as far as playing music professionally. But Jimmy is one of the greatest musicians that I've ever been around or have ever been associated with. He was just a remarkable musician.
So you pretty much had the idea to become a professional musician from a very young age.
Well, we dreamed of it, like kids would dream of being a baseball player or a basketball player. Growing up in our environment, music was all we did, so that was more or less our dream. And luckily, we were blessed to both be able to have some part in it. We're thankful.
That's great. Well, you're lucky to be able to fulfill the dream.
Yes, we were very lucky. Yeah,
I never made it as a baseball player.
I know. I tried that part too. I figured it was a lot easier on me to strum on the guitar than it was to try to catch a fly out in the outfield.
Thank you, Wes. Well, still in high school, you were offered a chance to join the Shenandoah cut-ups, but initially turned it down due to school commitments. Later on, you did join the band. How did that opportunity come about, and who reached out to you?
Well, actually, at that time, I was a fan of the Shenandoah cut-ups because I really thought that and still believe that they were one of the traditional driving bluegrass bands of that era, or even nowadays. I don't hear many bands that could play the way they played. I think it might have been Herschel that contacted me, or maybe John Palmer. See, Clarence Taylor Tate was primarily a fiddle player and a great one. And I think Udell McPeak might have left the band, and it left an opening for the guitar player. Well, Taylor Tate filled that position. He came off from playing fiddle and started playing guitar. And they seen that they missed the fiddle in the band. So they wanted really to add back that guitar and have a chance for Taylor to go back to the fiddle. And I can't remember how it came about that they contacted me or I contacted them. Anyway, I went to Roanoke, Virginia, and we sat one evening and all played for a few hours, and seemed that it worked out pretty good. So they wanted to know if I wanted to come aboard and play, and I took the job and thankful for it.
Wes, I was wondering, what kind of musical education did you receive at Shenandoah School? The musicians you played with were all at the professor level. Surely must have been extraordinary learning experiences for you.
Well, it was from, the first day on. I mean, I had never uh, traveled in a bus. I never had the opportunity to go every weekend or during the week a lot of times and get on the bus and travel. But the way they played the music the right way, the drive they had, the preciseness, the way they sang their songs, everything, I mean, just was perfect for me, just what I thought a bluegrass band should be. And I learned so much from them as far as how to play rhythm guitar with drive, how to get that perfect sound with drive instead of, not participating in my part. It was really a learning experience that I'll never forget. And I don't think that I would have became the musician, nowhere near the musician that I was if I hadn't had the opportunity. And I was blessed to have the opportunity to play with those guys. They had been in the business. They had played with a lot of people. I mean, you take Billy Edwards' banjo playing was so driving. John Palmer, you just don't hear acoustic bass players that can play a bass. His bass playing was just remarkable. And of course, I don't have to say anything about Herschel, Back when I was a kid, before I ever started playing with him, back in the early days when you went to a bluegrass festival, the musicians would be out jamming during the evening. I mean, they wouldn't just go to their bus and sit. They would go out and jam with different people. And Herschel was a guy that, especially at Bean Blossom and Burryville, Virginia, he was a guy that'd be out at the evening jamming. And for people just to walk up and get to jam with him and me, I was just in awe about listening to him pick and having the opportunity to play with him.
Well, during your time with the Cut-Ups, you brought a fresh energy by introducing songs like You and Me and a Dog Named Boo, which you never recorded as a song for an album, but played on stages, including one at the 7th Annual Bluegrass Festival, Watermelon Park, Berryville, Virginia, on July 5th, 1971. I'm sure you remember that stage.
Yeah, I can almost remember that far back.
Oh, yeah. What
But
inspired you to bring that kind of material into a bluegrass setting?
well, I'll tell you the reason that I started looking at different material. I love the traditional stuff. I still do. I always will. It's the greatest of our music. But at that time, I was seeing that there was different bands starting to evolve. Of course, the Osborne brothers had been out for a little while, and they were doing, some of the stuff that were changing the aspect of our music a little bit. And the Seldom scene was kind of start to involve the New Grass Revival, and they were kind of getting their own identity by bringing a fresh type of material. And back then, material was really hard to find. I mean, bluegrass bands didn't have the opportunity to have a catalog of songwriters, to supply their music. So I found that I had to reach out and search out and even start writing material if I wanted to try to have my own. I'm kind of trying to look for a different sound that would, when you heard it, you would say, well, this is the Seldom Scene or this is the Osborne Brothers. Something different is what I was looking for.
I see. Now, I was wondering who was behind the song selection for the 1971 Bluegrass Autumn album, which is otherwise a hard-driving traditional bluegrass record. There's a this one modern folk pop style song tucked in there, Never Ending Love for You. And it creates a unique and intriguing contrast within the album. I have a feeling you are working behind the scenes. Am I right?
Well, I was a little bit, and actually Herschel was a little bit. You know, he had that innovation of wanting to kind of branch out a little bit and have just a little different sound. You know, what I really liked about the cut ups, they kept their traditional stuff too. Uh, they would do a set that would have the great traditional stuff, the gospel stuff in it, and just add a few things, a few of the newer cuts in the set, which would kind of make it more listenable, we thought would, you know, or more people more interested. And, you know, that went on all the way through my career, you know, even with Boone Creek, we would do a lot of traditional gospel, a lot of traditional driving bluegrass, but then we would branch out and do different types of music within the set, which I felt like, you know, made the band sound better
That's great.
or more appealing, I should say.
Mhm.
Do you think that attracted more of the younger generation to the band?
I think maybe it did. I hope so, you know. It was attracting me at that time, you know, hearing the Seldom Scene come out with John Starling singing some of the different types of songs that he sang. Appealed to me, and I hope that it drawed some listeners in for the band.
Great. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Wes, after leaving the Shenandoah cut-ups, you co-founded Country Grass with the great Herschel Sizemore. What kind of vision did you and Herschel share for the band? Were there musical directions you were eager to explore that felt different from your earlier work?
I think so. Herschel, like I said, was always a hero to me. And I think that I was beginning to start to write songs at that time. And I think that might have helped us to make the decision, you know, to maybe try to jump out there and try to do something a little different, hoping that people would like it. I wrote a couple of new songs, you know, and he really liked them, and we decided that maybe, you know, we could do something just a little bit different. Not that we didn't enjoy what we were doing, but I think at that time, you know, maybe he was looking for something a little different, and I was trying to look for something a little different, you know, and we came together, you know, to form the Country Grass.
Mm-hmm. Well, Wes, I noticed something remarkable about Country Grass's one and only album, Living Free. Out of 12 tracks, 7 were your own compositions. That's quite rare in a bluegrass context, isn't it?
It was at that time. Material was really hard to come by, you know, songs were hard to come by. And I just I made a decision if we were going to have something new that I was going to have to write it, or we didn't know where else to look, you know. There were 8 people in that band. Tom McKinney played banjo. He was just a super banjo player. He played a while with the Shenandoah Cut-Ups, and then he went with me and Herschel and played in that band. And also my father, we were talking about his tenor singing. My father played bass and sang in that band. So it was very special to me. But I thought that if we were going to have anything new, it looked like one of us was going to have to write it. So I guess it ended up being me.